not that long ago when a trip to the moon seemed impossible. Then it seemed extraordinary. Now it seems almost commonplace. But we learned a lot on those moon flights. We learned a lot about man. And the results of what we have learned may have extraordinary implications for each of us here on Earth. The Life Sciences program of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration is responsible for the study of man before, during, and after flights. What they learned is now being applied to the practice of general medicine. The director of the Life Science program is the astronaut's physician, Dr. Charles Berry.
And the command module pilot, low, 36. CMP high was 80.
Okay, that ought to do it. We'll go back and work that and talk to you later. Thanks,
Okay.
Gary. My role in this control center here, where everybody really is focused on trying to conduct a successful lunar mission, is to guarantee the health of these astronauts in some way. Now, to do that, I've got to have certain information, and I have to have that information in real time. So we need to measure those things actually in flight. And we've developed a lot of new gear and are constantly improving that hardware to measure man in active function for a very long duration space flight. Now that does two important things for us. It provides a capability to do dynamic investigations instead of people sitting at the doctor's desk or on an examining table, or dynamic examination techniques that we're going to use to determine in flight what's going to happen to that individual and what his condition's going to be when he comes back, to predict. And that's what medicine's all about in the future, is preventive medicine and thus predictive medicine. Every physician wants to do that. What you really want to know is not what your blood pressure is when you sit down at the doctor's desk or you're on the examining table. You want to know if you're concerned about you being a hypertensive, do you have that when you're walking around the golf course? Every person in the world now is going to be able to look toward the day when we will have remote care available, we'll have more scientific medicine available, and that's going to allow every person to benefit then from space technology, which has been developed for a particular purpose for a very small group of people, and it's going to allow that technology to be utilized by people all over the world as their doctor gets it into his bag and can thus extend his own eyes and his ears and his hands in the practice of medicine here on the surface of the Earth.
Gotcha. Zoom right in. Then you switch to the remote. You switch to the remote, and then you get the overall picture, and then you can zoom in.
Okay, gotcha.
Good morning, Mr. Dunn. It's nice that you come over here to see us. And I told you that we were going to get the expert advice.
The patient is at a veterans hospital 30 miles away from the examining cardiologist at Massachusetts General Hospital.
Who's a prominent Harvard Medical School professor. And that's he over there. That's Dr. Stokel.
Good morning, Mr. Dunn. Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
I had one little question I wanted to ask you, and that is whether you have any kind of cough or sputum or phlegm.
Not very much. First, perhaps, might want to look at his eyes and make sure that his pupils react.
Medicine is really an information-gathering business. That's really what it comes down to. We have a study going on right now looking at patients both by TV and then directly and comparing what they got out of those two things. Now, the important thing is to be able to get the information from that patient. That's a terrific image. It's one of the definite ways medicine is going to change. And the thing that you got to understand from that is that, again, you can put the machine into that system, but you're still not really taking away doctor-patient relationship.
Looking at his throat.
Aha, perfect. Terrific. I've got a good view.
Good view.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Just put your tongue on the roof of your mouth, would you?
With the special lenses available to him, the examining doctor can enlarge a few square centimeters to an image 23 inches across.
You're getting this with the fiber optic. I have it outside.
I'd say you're giving me a better view than I'd get in my own office.
The physician's handwritten notes, his prescription, and his signature can be reproduced simultaneously at the remote clinic. A videotape recording of the entire examination can be used for further study and teaching.
Got it? Okay, he's got a soft grade 1 murmur there, which is systolic in timing.
Very soft and quite early.
Right.
Okay, now you want to listen for some rows?
Yes, you give the directions.
Just breathe through your mouth. Like that, that's right.
At Massachusetts General, more than 1,600 patients have been examined by remote television.
Got it? Okay, fine.
Okay.
Mr. Dunn, I'd like to thank you. I'm going to look at your x-rays and give my opinion to Dr. Clifford. And then I in turn hope that he communicates that to you directly.
All right. Okay. Now, John, I think if you could turn your camera the other way, and you'll come around to where the x-rays are. Now.
We did this program for a very specific purpose. It was to get man into space. And it wasn't done to try and create side benefits of any sort. But you can never do a tremendous task such as landing man on the moon without having a very great advance in science and technology in order to provide you the information to make that task possible.
The common firefly, a bug that glows in the dark, provided an enzyme used by NASA for the rapid detection of bacteria. Originally intended to detect small amounts of bacteria on Mars, the analyzer, nicknamed Flash, is already being used for detection of bacteria in urine and spinal fluid. Where the conventional agar culture takes 4 days, the automatic Flash analyzer takes less than 30 seconds. A small manual analyzer will be available for use in doctors' offices. In the detection of bacterial infection in spinal fluid, for instance, time can make the difference between life and death. Maintaining life in space demands constant monitoring of basic life functions. This has led to the development of miniaturized transmitters.
Okay, this morning we're going to record your body temperature with a transmitter capsule. This capsule is a little radio transmitter, transmits your body temperature from the inside of your stomach and intestines to the recorder on the bench over here and monitors your body temperature continuously. During our testing this morning, we're going to have a constant record of your body temperature as we need it for the testing on the bicycle, ergometer test, exercise test, and also for long-term acute testing. As soon as the capsule comes to equilibrium with your body, it'll begin to transmit your body temperature. The temperature is broadcast out approximately 37 degrees centigrade, which is an approximately normal temperature for your body. Any deviations are measured on the recorder so that we know what happens to your core temperature during any of the testing that we'll be doing today. You'll have no pain, no feeling of the transmitter in your body. It'll pass on through as normal food would pass through. There's no problems at all with interference with any of your system. If you want to lay down for a while, we'll get the test started for the day. It'll take about 2 minutes for the temperature to come to equilibrium, and we'll get a continuous record of your body temperature.
Just as a space capsule explores outer space, the tiny transistorized pill explores inner space. It can locate the site of bleeding or infection where body temperature is elevated. This experiment is checking metabolic changes during the stress of heavy exercise.
The pill is not powerful enough to transmit farther than a few feet away from your body. So we have a retransmitter which we'll give to you to put in your pocket, which will transmit for 150 to 200 feet. We'll be picked up by this aerial, sent through the data phone over to our laboratory. Okay, so you put that in your pocket, and we'll dial up the number that we have to call here, which gets us onto our laboratory. Okay, and when we get to tone, that means we're on the lab, so we push the test button, and we're in business. So you're now transmitting from here to the aerial through the data phone to our lab.
If you look straight up, I'm going to turn the machine on just so it makes the circles.
Men and women, as well as metals for aircraft and spacecraft, have been examined by X-ray. But conventional X-ray equipment is large, unwieldy, and expensive. This huge polyfoam X-ray, for example, is a brilliant aid in locating the exact depth of tumors or fractures. But it weighs over a ton and costs $100,000. The space program requires equipment which is small, portable, and capable of instant readout. NASA has financed the development by Dr. Zoltan Zapezi of Westinghouse of an instantaneous X-ray plate, which can be used over and over again. The fluorescent plate produces an immediate image without any developing process. The image can be wiped and the plate reused thousands of times, or it can be stored up to 8 hours. The miniaturized radiation source used here was developed by the Bucky Corporation.
I was thinking of a tremendous train wreck or a large aircraft crash or something of this sort. You know, in the triage and sorting of patients, and you get a tremendous number with fractures. And I mean, you're not going to go ahead and repair all those fractures there, but you could certainly do a great deal to try and have those patients moved in a safer manner to the hospital facility. And this is the sort of thing that would give you that kind of an advantage very neatly.
Another problem for the space program was the need to monitor the brain waves of astronauts on a continuous basis during both sleep and wakefulness. The conventional polygraph, like this one, is too bulky for the space program, and it is subject to human error.
You want to start taking some deep breaths in and out.
It necessitates fastening electrodes directly to the scalp. They didn't stay on in space flights.
We're looking at relationship between heart rate and depth of sleep. This is important to us because we need to know how much rest the crewman has for predicting what you're going to allow an activity on the next day, and are you getting into a fatigue state or not.
A soft electrode cap was developed to replace the conventional electrodes. It can be used to continuously monitor a patient who is awake, asleep, in coma, or under anesthesia. Combined with a sleep stage analyzer, the electrode cap can also broadcast signals to a remote computer for more detailed analysis.
One of the things we learned very early was that we were dealing with the normal individual who was responding to an abnormal environment. You don't learn anything from static testing. You need to stress that individual in order to determine are there abnormalities in some of these body systems. Doing a dynamic test where you're trying to measure somebody, trying to stress the cardiovascular system as a whole, is a key thing that has to get into medicine. We have had to look at non-destructive testing of all of the systems that go into building a rocket or a spacecraft. This is a part of the procedure to assure that it can withstand all the rigors of a space flight. And these analyzers, which were built for testing machines, are now being applied to human use.
What we're doing is finding the bottom of your lung. Does it tickle?
The testing of rocket engines by sound analysis has led to a major advance over the common stethoscope.
Each one of these little marks on here is a spot that I'm going to be listening to, and I want to be able to come back to it.
Every physician knows from experience that the major cause of illness in children is respiratory disease. The problem is to locate exactly those portions of the lung which are affected by comparing the sound of both lungs simultaneously.
Deep breath. That's good. That's good. Bonnie, I want some good deep breaths.
Lung sounds are displayed on an oscilloscope while they are amplified and tape recorded by a technician. Sensitive microphones replace the conventional stethoscope.
That's fine. Deep breath.
What they're trying to do here is to analyze these sounds in a very direct way by computers, and we're going to learn a lot more things about what's going on in the lung, both in normal lungs and in diseased lungs, because you're going to have a lot more information to look at. And so you'll probably find a number of other things that you haven't even known were there before.
Deep breaths. Even deeper.
Excellent. That's fine.
The recorded sounds are then played back and analyzed by a computer which can differentiate between normal patterns and those caused by asthma, cystic fibrosis, or emphysema. The sudden impact of re-entry and landing prompted space scientists to develop a tempered polyfoam to protect human tissue. This method is being studied as a way to prevent ulcers, which add thousands of dollars per patient to the cost of treating paraplegics, burn victims, and other long-term bed patients. The tempered foam responds to body heat, breathes easily, and may prevent ulcers where a stump joins an artificial limb. The testing of astronauts under the stress of gravity led to speculation that a pilot might not be able to manipulate controls with his hands during blast-off or re-entry. Simulators confirmed that the eye muscles were least affected by G-stress. The logical answer was the development of a switch activated by the human eye.
What are you doing?
Well, I want to turn on this wheelchair. When I look at the left light, the wheelchair drives forward until I look at that light again, and it stops. When I look at the left light the third time, it'll drive in reverse until I look at it the fourth time, which it'll stop. The right light controls right and left turn alternately. First time I look at it, it goes left. Second time I look at it, it goes right. I'll show you what I mean.
The sight switch is actually a photoelectric sensor, which depends on the difference in infrared reflection between the iris, which absorbs infrared, and the eyeball, which reflects infrared. It can be mounted on a pair of ordinary glasses. It promises new opportunity for patients who cannot now operate wheelchairs, page-turners, and feeding units. There is also a need for improvement of braces and artificial limbs which depend on the transfer of power from a muscle which is still functional.
Still eating lettuce, huh?
Yeah, that's all I can handle. Wish.
Can I put it in front?
Mouthful. No. Big bites, you know.
The refinement of remote-controlled manipulators for the space program has led to the development of a sophisticated mechanical arm which can be used by patients who are totally paralyzed from the neck down. Celeste Thompson has been completely helpless since the age of 19 as a result of polio. NASA provided her with a mechanical arm which uses tiny brushless motors and sensitive proportional controls. In less than a year, Celeste has learned to resume the tasks of daily living. Recently, she sent her first handwritten letter in 18 years to her daughter. She has also learned to type 25 words a minute. The liberating effect of such devices can change a patient's outlook from one of despair to hope.
Is
that intended to scratch your nose like that?
I just do it sometimes. Yeah, I do it on purpose. It helps. I didn't like the idea of a tongue control. It sounded a little unpleasant, and I didn't think I'd like it, but it turned out that it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. It worked out real good.
I think it is really very, very wonderful that we can help individuals who have handicaps of all sorts, whether they were learning to recover from a stroke or whether they've had a disease like polio or encephalitis. But what's even more important than that is to be able to prevent those things from happening in the first place. And preventive medicine is the thing that we really ought to be putting a tremendous amount of emphasis on.
Someday, the eye switch, the tongue switch, the transmitter pill, or computerized analysis of illness may, like the moon flights of today, seem almost commonplace. Someday, perhaps, preventive medicine will eliminate the need for so many cures. Someday, perhaps, a nation of healthy people, like the moon flights of yesterday, will not be the impossible dream, but a reality.